had some sickness go around the staff, so we didn't want to pass it on to anybody. And we also have staff from the applicant party here as well tonight, and they can introduce themselves in just a minute. All right, get this going for folks online. Okay, so just a quick note about the name. It looks like on our letters, we've had it listed as Library Park Collaborative. And so you might see that online if you're searching for this project. But the title of the slides that we received from the applicants today was East Oak Townhomes. And that is not an uncommon thing for names to change over the course of a development proposal. I will also make sure that you all have the number that's associated with this project. So regardless of what the name is, you can always find it on our website. There's a document at the sign-in sheets that you can take with you that will have that number on. Okay, just a little bit of information about the neighborhood meeting process, why we're here, why we do this, why I'm here. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to give some time for the applicant to send out some information for you all so you can learn about what's being proposed. And then there's also time set aside afterwards for questions and answers. It's a great opportunity because we have a lot of experts in the room tonight who can answer a variety of questions that you might have about this project. I'll also point out that this camera in the center here is my owl, and he's recording the neighborhood meeting. And so questions, answers, as well as comments will be recorded today. Hi there. Come on in. All right. I also just want to very quickly point out, because we did have just one person come in earlier looking for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing tonight. If you're looking for Planning and Zoning Commission, that's going to be at City Hall at 300 LaPorte Avenue. And they are starting about now, about different projects. So we'll just start off with some very brief introductions, and then I go over my ground rules for public engagement. And then I'll pass it over to Arlo, who's the planner on this project, and he'll talk about the project from the city's perspective briefly. And then we'll give the applicant some time to talk about what they're planning and what they're hoping to do with this project. And then, as I said, the remainder of the evening is set aside for question and answer, as well as comment time. I try to leave that the majority of the evening. So we should have plenty of time to get to everybody's questions and comments as well. Spring Creek. So I think that the proposal that you're talking about, Christina, is the Femister Trail, which is over by Spring Creek. There is a link to that meeting, which is a Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, on the same webpage where you found the link to this hearing. It's the second box down. Ours is the top. It says neighborhood meeting, and then there's a second one that says Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. And they'll be talking about the CSU Trail over by Spring Creek Gardens. Okay. So talking about ground rules, I do bring these up right at the beginning just so that we have time to talk about them. And sometimes I would like to let the conversation flow naturally without having to pause you all. Most of these are in the interest of saving time so that everybody gets a chance to speak tonight. I will cut us off at 7:30 just because we are here pretty late this evening, and I don't want to waste anybody's time. So just when you're making a comment, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll call on you, and that goes for the folks in the room as well as the folks on Zoom. You can raise your hand on Zoom to make a comment, either spoken, or you're welcome to put them in the chat as well. And just, don't talk over other folks, remembering our kindergarten class rules, essentially. And then, trying to stay on topic. There are so many things that the city does, and we hear a lot of things in these neighborhood meetings that don't necessarily apply to the proposal being discussed tonight. So I try to steer folks towards that as much as possible. And, trying to, when you're coming up with disagreement with what's being proposed, that is welcome here. This is the night to do that, but just remembering to do so with respect. All right, going over briefly who's here tonight and who's able to answer your questions. I'm gonna make sure everybody online is on mute. So we have the applicant group here tonight, and that consists of a variety of different experts who propose this development to the city. It can be architects, developers, engineers, traffic folks, anybody who's involved in getting this project built as part of the applicant team. We also have city planning staff, and that's the staff that reviews this project before it's then sent to get approval from our Planning and Zoning Commission at the end of that process. And so they're here to talk about zoning, the requirements that the city will place on this project to make sure it's compatible with our rules. We also have a couple of other city staff here. For example, we have our engineer, Sophie. So if there are any questions for her, she's happy to answer those as well. And then I kind of described my position. I'm here to kind of be a facilitator, a listener, and to run the technology, because that's a whole job in and of itself. And then we'll touch on this a little bit in more detail towards the end of our presentation, but I just wanted to briefly note here, you can see that there's a several step process that this project goes through in development review, and we're on step 2 here. This is the step where an actual application is submitted, where there are hard plans for this project. So you notice we haven't quite gotten to that point yet. And the reason that we do this is because it allows some flexibility in the plans to respond to the neighbors' input and to make sure their questions are answered as early as we can. The kind of downside of that is that we may answer your question with, well, we're not sure yet. Make sure everybody's on mute. Thank you. It might be something that's coming down the road. A really good example is we usually require a traffic impact study, and that will come later in these steps. So we might not know exactly how many trips this will potentially generate, but we're happy to find that. And my role in the city is to make sure that you are continued to be plugged in as we receive those kinds of things and as we get more information. So our philosophy is engage early and engage again as we continue on. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Arlo.
Thanks, Em. Thanks everyone for joining. I apologize for not being able to be there in person, but I'm getting over COVID and still in the quarantine period, so you wouldn't want me there anyway. But like I said, my name is Arlo Schumann. I'm the city planner for the project. And I'll just give a little bit of site context so everyone knows a little bit about the site itself and what we're talking about today, and then queue it up for the applicant to give their presentation on what they'd like to propose. So the site is situated on the northwest corner of Matthews Street and Oak Street. The property is about 4.6 acres, almost a half an acre. The existing property is a church. The proposal is requesting to build 15, currently is requesting to build 15 single family attached dwellings or townhomes. You'll see that that used as the reference for the type of dwellings that is being proposed. And this property is part of both the Old Town Neighborhood Plan and the Downtown Plan. The existing, we have kind of a unique site here where we have both overlapping plans and zone districts that occur on this site. So a portion of the site, most of the site is in the Neighborhood Conservation Buffer District, the NCB. And then a portion, the southwest quarter of the project is in the Downtown zone district, which is and in part of the historic core subdistrict. The project as proposed under the current code is a type 2 development review, which goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and approval. And this slide is just a basic outline of the process. So the applicant has completed a conceptual review. They have completed 2 separate conceptual reviews for this. And tonight we are at the neighborhood meeting stage. Next, the applicant would submit a application for review for preliminary development plan. That review process happens when we get to a point where they are ready for the Planning and Zoning Board hearing. A notice is put out, and then we have the Planning and Zoning Board hearing for the final decision on the project. After that, the PDP would be completed, and pending approval, they would begin the final development plan process. And that's basically it for the overview. So we can hand it off to the next folks.
Okay, well, while Em's pulling up our presentation here, my name is Shelley Lamastro. I'm with Russell Mills Studios, and I'm the planner and landscape architect on this project. And joined with me this evening are 3 architects on this project as well. Then also we've got some additional ownership representation in here. So all of us will be speaking tonight and are obviously available to answer questions. So,
Yeah, I'm just gonna really quickly pop
Okay.
this in the chat.
well, then I'm gonna, we also have, as they mentioned, a civil engineer and traffic engineer for this project that are already on board. They're not here this evening for it, but if you have any specific questions regarding that, you can email Em and she can forward those on to us, and we can get you answers on those portions.
Okay.
Okay, so here's where our introduction. So our architects here tonight are with Davis Architects and also AU Workshop. They're going to be talking a little bit more about the actual building that you're going to see, and then as I mentioned, from Russell Mills Studios for the planning and landscape architecture. And then also part of this project, Wilson and Company is the civil engineer, and will be also Delich Associates will be responsible for submitting the traffic memo that is a part of the submittal requirements on this report or on this project. So I do want to mention here, because I think it's important for everybody. These are some projects that have been completed by the various consultants that you see in this room. And obviously, I know a bunch of you guys know Lori and Bob and are familiar with their building here on the left-hand side, L'Avenir. For those of you that aren't aware of this building, L'Avenir, is just across the street from the project site that we're going to be talking about. And then also the buildings here on the right, the Fooder Garage and Confluence, Randy from AU Workshop, these are some of his projects as well. So we have just a few here, but we wanted to mention these. All of our firms have done work in the downtown area and are very familiar with it. And I think, as you can see here, produce really high quality projects. And I think that's important to note as we're moving forward. Okay, so I won't go over these next slides too much, since Arlo already touched on them, but this is just slightly under 1/2 acre for this site. The alley that you see on the west-hand side is that property boundary on the west-hand side. And then in between is a historically eligible McIntyre property, which is that really cute little red house north of this. Kind of make those west and north boundaries, and then of course Matthews and Oak Street. We do have some other historic properties or historic eligible, so it's a pretty heavily concentrated area around here with that. And then, of course, to the southeast, you'll see the Library Park. L'Avenir, the building that we pointed out, is just south of it, and that's where that is located in plan view. And then, of course, to the east is the Fort Collins Mennonite Fellowship as well. And these are just some site photos for those of you that you know, maybe want to point out something later in the meeting. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the area, but here again is that corner looking down Oak and Matthews Street, and that existing, as Arlo noted, place of worship, buildings that are located on this property. You can see, of course, looking down south on the property. So the property is on the left-hand side in that picture in the lower left. And then this is looking on the lower right-hand side, the opposite direction down the alley from Oak Street, looking north. And that, thank you. And the structure you see there on the right is part of this project as well. These two slides are one of the things we wanted to note on this just for later is I think it's important to note how close this existing place of worship is to that historically eligible McIntyre house. And that's something that we're going to bring up later when we're looking at the elevations and 3D models of that and how we're kind of resolving some of that and creating a better separation there. And then also, sorry. Oh, yeah. And then also this is that back property line. This is on the left hand, or on the left of that fence is the back of the McIntyre house. And then on the right hand side of that fence is the existing parking lot behind the place of worship. There is a parking space that comes off of the alley for the McIntyre house as well along there. But this tree is essentially planted on the property line. So just noting that. Okay. And then as Arlo noted, this is kind of a unique property that we do have one property. However, the zone district kind of jumped in part of this and kind of holds that building that you see there. I've outlined in white on the aerial just so you can see a little bit better how those zone districts fall in this. And so there's some pieces there and some complexities on working with the two zone districts that we can talk about later if anybody has questions about that. But we do want to note that, you know, we're working to create a project that is compatible with the surrounding existing buildings and context of this site. So this is the proposed site plan right now. This is obviously conceptual. We're still drawing by hand on this. So want to point out a couple things here before, just from how the site will function before we get into the building and go up on there. Want to note that though it right now, what is being proposed is that, again, 15 single family attached townhomes. So each one of these units will be on their own lot within this. And then that central courtyard area and access off the alley that you see will be a separate commonly held lot for those tenants. The units that are fronting Matthews Street, their front door access will be along Matthews Street along there. And so they'll have front porches and that are connecting out to that public right-of-way sidewalk. As we move to the south, there are some additional two-story units and that are along the front there that are also fronting that Oak Street access. And then for the units that are just north of those two, those are going to connect up from the right-of-way in that pass-through that you see between those units up into the courtyard area. So their front doors will front that courtyard area, and that's where there will also be patio areas out there for those folks and some, you know, areas for congregating and recreating I do want to note that all of these will be are proposed right now to be gated, and so this would be a private courtyard, just for these tenants, not open to the public. And then, of course, you see just north of that west bay of units, that driveway access. And so that's where, for the vehicle parking on this site, all of these units here on the east and the ones that are backing to the alley will have garages. Some of these garages are tandem load, and so that means that cars are parking like this versus cars parking like this, but there's still two garages in there. And so for those units on the east, they're going to drive into that driveway access, and then that driveway courtyard area will function for those units for them to pull into the garages. And then the units that are there on the west will load directly from the alley. So they'll have basically a driveway apron that will connect out to that alley as well. I think for right now, I'm probably going to leave it at that on the site plan. And again, when we're done here, we want to get all the information to you, and then welcome to ask questions about it. And then if you're able to move to the next slide, I'm going to turn this over to Lori and Randy, and they're going to talk a little bit more about the architecture as we start talking about this site more from a vertical perspective.
Great. Thank you guys all for coming. This is really nice to see all of you. It warms my heart. We moved into the Library Park neighborhood, and we met so many wonderful neighbors that were supportive and curious about our project. And we are happy that there is the opportunity to do another similar project across the street from us. And part of the reason we got together, a small group of neighbors, got together to do this because of the threat we feel of some bad actors in our neighborhood, and we feel like we need to take that property back. So with that, a little bit about the elevations, and Shelley shared the plans, but we are working with AU Workshop. As you know, the project at the corner of Remington and Oak, which is owned by Miss Tricia Deal right here, and her husband, who developed that probably a year before we developed Lavenier. So we've joined with them because this is a bigger project than we really want to take on at this time in our life. And we feel like they are uber qualified to do the work. They do high quality work all over Fort Collins. They're even doing the Carnegie Creativity Center remodel right now. That's in process. So Randy and his partner Jason are going to be very instrumental in all of this process. So the elevations, we want to talk about these just a little bit. On Oak Street, we're trying to look at Lavenier and do some of the same things that we did on Lavenier with windows facing the street, French windows, alcoves. If you see on the left, there's an alcove with the two doors, very similar to what we have. And part of having alcoves on the street is that it creates a defensible space for people. So if you have people on the street, you're less likely to have bad things. So it's safer for the people that live in the building. It's also safer for people on the street. So any time you have a building that has direct access to the outdoors, to the street, to the sidewalk, it's a much safer environment. So
either first floor or second floor.
Either first floor or second floor. Being able to communicate with the street and, eyes on the street is a term that's used often. So that we're trying to do that, as well as that courtyard pass through in the middle. You see the two people. There will be gates there, but they'll be transparent. So you'll be able to see into the courtyard. We don't know yet if it'll be open during the day, but it's definitely a private courtyard, and for obvious reasons. What you see on the roof in this Matthews elevation is the solar canopies. So there's a stair up to the roof on 3 of the units that have roof decks, and those structures right now are intended to be part of the solar apparatus. Because like Lavenier, this project is aiming to be energy independent. And of course, the same high quality as Lavenier. So what materials are not yet quite decided. We know there'll be some brick, probably some concrete panel, which is also like Lavenier, the first floor of Lavenier. And most people don't know, but the red terracotta on Lavenier is basically brick. It's just modern brick. So kind of the same things, concrete and brick. Randy, you have anything to add on this side?
I think it's important to note that
Yes.
those,
Oh, yes,
pardon?
McIntyre House.
Go ahead.
So you see the McIntyre House on the right, and previously the building, you saw the image of the building being within 5 feet of the house, the property line. And so we pulled it back another 5 feet. So we're probably 12, 13 feet now from the face of the house. We're providing a 10-foot setback in essence, and we're required to provide a 5-foot setback.
Yeah, actually 10 foot plus because of its.
Yeah,
height.
so I think it's, and then another thing that we came up with the other day, particularly Randy was pushing this, was the displaying of the wall back so that you can't tell this in the elevation, but, yeah. So
Yeah,
we also
Victorian
brought a
style.
model.
I gotta put this out.
So this is what exists. This is north. And this is the, the church, the little office building, and that big gymnasium portion of the church.
So we're looking
It's
at
kinda
a
helpful.
series of
Better.
devices to respond to the McIntyre House. If you know 4.7 of the Fort Collins land use code, that's the part that's about the historic preservation.
And we do
And
have some
we've already-
images up here. You guys.
Oh.
Yeah, we do.
We've
That's neat.
We've already had our first meeting with historic preservation. And, we're very well aware of the kinds of things that we need to do in a respectful way for historic buildings. Whether it's responding to proportions of the historic building, the materiality of the historic building, the scale of it, its rhythms and modulations and series of other things. Even though our building won't look like it in any way, it will have a whole bunch of things that we're doing to respect the building. And Lori just mentioned that we're talking about on the corner. You can't see it in the model
No, it's
yet.
not shown in
Yeah,
this model.
It's new, it's brand new, just this last couple of days.
First couple of days.
Yeah. We're gonna actually bend the facade back to provide one more
So-
response to the building.
So what he's talking about is we're gonna take, instead of this being parallel with that facade,
This
it's gonna
corner.
splay. So we're gonna shorten that facade by 5 feet?
3.5.
3.5. Okay, 3.5. So that'll open up this corner quite a bit.
Yeah, and also the entry on that corner provides visual, a visual line to the house from the street.
Yeah, what I want to elaborate on that. So the ground floor entry porch is set back on the corner. So that as you're walking past, it's another sort of window into it. One thing that's really important at the scale of buildings like this, and I think I talk about this all the time, is that the way we appreciate buildings is sort of, for me, at 3 scales. The scale of the pedestrian, which is the street walking along the sidewalk in front of the building, or the building in this neighborhood. The second is the scale of the street, how all the buildings relate to one another on the street. And then the third one is sort of at the scale of the neighborhood, where some buildings are tall, like church steeples, and important buildings, and other buildings are short. And so we see the cityscape in those sort of 3 scales, and almost simultaneously. But so thinking about pulling that front porch back, we're saying we want to respect that sort of corner and help people to appreciate that building that right now is sort of being like pushed upon physically. So those are the kinds of things we're.
Yeah, and
As well
also-
as the
So,
Oak Street facade as well.
This
We
building-
think this is a very important building, the
This is Zurich
sort of
Cleaners.
cleaners.
It's the little yellow brick building, it's got a sort of Art Deco, curves to it. It's a very beautiful little building. And to provide some relief for that building, we took this down to 2 stories so that you can get a little more view and air in that area. And we also set it back. So it's set back another 5 feet. So you get 10 feet at that first interface with the building instead of what's required is 5 foot setback. So we're pushing at the corners that are next to historic buildings to give that relief and scale.
It's interesting, the historic folks sort of pick one building that you're next to and say, this is the one you need to respond to. And we've kind of felt like, hey, we can do both. We can respond to both of them. And even though they're not going to use the Zorich cleaners as a metric for us, we're going to do it anyway and do the right thing.
Just a note about the west building, the one that is in partially in the downtown zone. That zone allows 4 stories. So we have 3 units in that block that have 4-story third bedrooms. And they also have a deck in the front that is pushed back 10 feet. So again, deferring to the neighbors to not block sunlight any more than we, are going to, just because development does that. And then the ones that are on the east are the sear towers that in the elevations you saw as the solar canopies. So that's the alley elevation, but it's very similar. They're mirrored. It's just the ones that are on the alley are actually occupied space.
And you can see how the facade is purposely broken up so that it's not just one big mass. It's consciously developed so that you can, oh, well, that piece is there, and that speaks to me as a terrace, as a balcony. And oh, look, there's another one. And oh, look, there's another little device over there that actually makes it more interesting to look at and think about in your head.
I just want to point out that the north elevation that you can see there, we wanted it all to be white, just like it's shown. I'm just kidding.
The
What are
owners,
we talking about? That,
part owners went.
yeah, we as Lori pointed out, we're still just, in the conceptual stage here. So,
That blend in with the freezer centers.
yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, we want to respond to that. That's.
Please don't.
I know.
Get some teal trim.
The color? Oh,
So
okay.
just know that although that color palette is just the same as the other color palette, it's just, we didn't put color on that drawing.
Just ran out of time. And as you see in the model, we don't have the interior courtyards articulated yet. Because, things, it's a process and we have to do the street first because we have to go through the city process and they don't really care about the inside. So, of course. You can also see in that north elevation, the courtyard that's opened up because before that was a 75-foot long blank wall to the neighborhood, to mostly the McIntyre house, but just not a very nice building edge, which is not, the people of the community of Christ are not that way. They're very nice people and have been really good stewards of the neighborhood. So I liked their mission statement is something like providing a place for love, joy, and peace. And I thought, well, this is perfect. This is what we want to do. We want to create this community with a courtyard, around a courtyard, and focus on wellness and sustainability. And it fits their mission, I think.
I want to add that there's a lot of variety of sizes of these units. They're not all just big townhouses. 3 of them are really big. 3 of them are medium size. Is it 7 or 8 of them are
9
9? The
Nine
narrow,
are
the A
smaller.
units
are narrow.
that are, the 15-foot wide units. They're fairly compact, and then there's 2 units that are really small. So they're not all going to be in sort of one price point when they're sold. So there'll be a variety of people at various stages that can afford to by, I mean, of course, they'll be market rate, but
Yeah.
they, I mean.
Oh, there's that.
Oh, there's that. We haven't heard a lot about that kind of issue in town lately, have we?
Yeah.
So we have all these drawings here that we can talk to, so if you guys have questions and you want us to bring up a certain plan or certain elevation or models or whatever. Let us know and Em's gonna come drive us to the right slide here with this, so. We really do just want to hear from everybody else out here on thoughts, if you guys have questions. Any feedback
I want
along
to
the
talk
way.
about schedule before we get into, I'm sure you're gonna want to know when it's starting, when it's ending. We're hoping we're to start construction mid-summer to late summer. And it'll be a year and a half after that, so probably to 25, it will be complete, late 25. Did I do the math right? Somebody check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Did I do that
yeah,
right?
late 25.
Didn't sound like it, did it?
Late 25, early 26.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
And the contractor is Saunders Construction, and Gabe is right here. He's our project manager. And his dad is a real good friend of ours, and we're looking really forward to just nailing this guy, making him work like crazy.
Saunders is also the construction firm doing the Carnegie Center for Creativity across the street. And they also worked on our project Confluence that you saw a picture of, that's across from Ginger Baker. And that's where our offices are.
Come on.
I'll go ahead and start with
Thank you for
folks
raising
in the
hands.
room. I do just want to make sure folks online aren't feeling left out. Feel free to put your hands up or pop a question in the chat if you've got one. We'll go ahead and start with hands up on Zoom. I see one here.
You said there would be variance in the size of the units. Can you give us approximation, smallest to largest in terms of square footage?
Lori?
Yeah, we have 15, we have two 900 square foot units. And we have, 7 1,500 square foot units,
16, really.
3. The 4-story ones are 26 square feet and 3 bedrooms. The, Matthews Street are 2,500 square feet.
Yeah.
And each of those the larger models have 2-car garages, the 1,500 square foot have 1-car garage.
And they all have a small basement.
And they're all small.
Yeah, they're about
Wow.
250 square feet, maybe 275, something like that. Because what we found on Lavinier, we have 3 Lavinier. No, I guess there's 2 residents. I mean,
Depending on how you count it.
2 units.
Three
Three
units.
units represent.
they're our neighbors, and
Four people.
they're just absolutely unbelievable, and we just feel so blessed having neighbors like these guys. And you guys, Margie and Rich bought the first one, which was in D. And I'm just so glad that you guys bought, and then you come along and buy, and it's just, it's
Shaking
magical.
it up. We got a young person.
Everybody's talking about retiring and she's busting her ass. Right?
I didn't know I was going to be the youngest in the neighborhood.
Anyway, so what we realized is that community that we created is just really magical. And we're hoping to do the same kind of thing.
Same thing.
I do, as far as the alley. I live at the front row. Are you going to have it widen? Because you're gonna have cars coming, going,
It's just wide enough
It's
to
stop.
cars go back and forth. We're setting back.
but it's not enough for 2 vehicles, really.
No,
It's
it's not
20 feet.
barely.
Yeah, it is 20
Barely,
feet wide.
yeah.
Well, I think
So
the
then-
difference is further on down the alley, it's tight. But what we're doing, you can see how this it's set back another 5 feet. So we're pretty sure, darn sure that it's wide enough. Or
For 2 vehicles.
That's really
two
up to the city
vehicles.
anyway. That's not our.
Yeah, so that's actually public right away, with that, so that particular area,
Is that, I know with other vehicles, I've had to one of us has to stop.
Pull over.
And
Pull over.
truly, it's not uncommon even on public right-of-way roads. Some of the roads only have 20-foot travel lanes both ways, and then if you're in some neighborhoods, you kind of have to eke over while somebody's going if there's cars
Especially
parked on
Right,
both
but-
sides.
Meaning a garage, them exiting.
Well, that first building, I keep forgetting what the name of that is, the cleaners or, yeah, there's always trucks parked there. So that
Oh, that's
first
the
unit
construction.
is, yeah, I mean, they're always there. And we
Yeah,
have,
so
we
you're-
have trouble
They won't-
getting
they
around
won't be
it.
So
there.
where your building would be, we kind of go around the parking lot of the church to get.
Yeah, the first garage might have
Oh,
issues if
I know
they're,
what you're saying.
So they're parking in the alley?
yes,
That alley's, yeah.
on the left, like
Like,
it only impacts your first two condos,
right,
Oh, you mean they temporarily park there to run in or something?
an hour or two.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
that's not temporary.
I've never noticed that.
I don't think they're supposed to.
No,
No.
They're
not-
not supposed to.
No.
No.
They have a business there.
Yeah.
well, we know them, we can talk to them directly.
Yes,
And the Zork cleaners, is that the real estate place? You
No.
keep
That's
calling
the
it Zork
contract,
cleaners.
it's the contractors.
That's where.
It
the
used to be
contractors are.
that used to be Zork Cleaners.
It's historic.
That's just
But that's
historic
not
name.
what it is right now. It's
No.
that reddish building
Yeah.
where that workout guy is in the back.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the
gotcha,
Lions
gotcha,
Guild
gotcha.
contract.
we have,
Yeah.
And did you guys think of no garages like you did in Lavinier?
Yes.
There's a but, I think.
there's not,
You know, we are.
Or the choice like you had in
No,
Lavinier?
we do have room. We did not mention this, but we have 2 spots at the back for shared electric cars. So the reason Margie asked that is because,
And we didn't
Lavinier
put
is
you-
pretty unique. It does not require parking on the first floor, even though we have the ability to park in our first floor. It's not required by the city because we asked for a modification to the parking standards, and by having a shared electric car, that counts for 5 parking spaces. And then each unit gets a space in the garage, an Old Town garage. So the reason is, I mean, one of the Ps that we're so proud of, I meant to say this earlier, but Lavinier, we're proud because it produces all its own energy with renewable resources. It promotes
Likeable.
it promotes a healthy lifestyle, right? And a flexible lifestyle. And it promotes healthy living because it allows you to bike or walk. And in fact, sometimes reinforces, which is Margie brought this up. They had 2 cars when they moved from Denver. They sold one because we have a shared electric car. Why do you need 2 cars? So now our building only has 3 cars. We have 4 units, but 3 cars. So we feel like promoting that is part of our mantra responsibility in this new world of global warming. So the reason we didn't is because most people that are investors and that, you know, believe you have to have cars to sell a project, they kind of rule. They rule. Because I don't know, how many of you have a car? Yeah, y'all have cars, right? And you need a place to park them. So we do have cars. They are connected to a flex space. So if you do not have 2 cars, you can use that as just like Lavinier, but it is required parking.
And the first floor is set up similarly to what Lavinier, except instead of having 1 car that we have 2 cars available. And what we're hoping is some people, in fact, a lot of the plans are set up, still have that 1 car, but you have that flex space on that floor that you can expand that first floor into.
I do have one question online. Jacqueline, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm not there in person. I'm a little bit of a frog today. So, everything looks really, really cool. Thanks for all the schematics were super fun to look at. So thanks for everybody's super hard work on those. I don't remember who brought up, the market value pricing. I don't have those numbers in front of me, and I was just kind of curious, like what would ballpark be? I'm new to Fort Collins, so I'm still kind of like learning like the area and stuff like that.
You know, we don't really know at this point.
a year and a half from now.
You know, we're still actively designing and can't really, you know, and the market is crazy right now.
Yeah,
You know,
we
it's
have-
like, it's hard to.
Right,
imagine.
right. Yeah, and that's sort of why I was asking is like, you guys were talking about like wanting to bring people in and stuff like that. And as far as I can tell, anyone working 2 full-time jobs actually can't really afford anything in Fort Collins, like with what people get paid and stuff like that. So I'm sort of curious if you guys are going to be able to do like some affordable housing, some housing vouchers to be able to make this stuff happen, or is it only going to be like the condo co-op style?
It's not condo, it's townhomes, but we did actually pursue doing affordable housing units. And we put the, numbers to paper, and a lot of the problems right now are interest rates are so high. It's hard for these nonprofits that provide affordable units, below market value. It's hard for them to buy at even half of market value for us. So
Right.
is very tight because it's a small site, and we really didn't want to give up on the courtyard, and we really like the idea of having individual entrances. So,
Right.
with townhomes, that's actually another story. We have been going down this road for
We've been
now
at this about 3 years,
3 years.
2.5 years.
We originally wanted to do a wellness community with 500 square foot units and aging in place units, and that would be 40 units. 40 units was in the new code that was passed and then repealed. We were allowed to have that density, and we wanted to have that multi-generational component. And so, we had a community
Right.
center, we had so many things, and that's probably, if you saw the paper, that's what was described. And we ran into construction defect
The
laws
construction
are
laws
so
in Colorado
crazy
are just horrible.
that
You're personally
our
liable.
contractor backed out and said we cannot do condos because of the liability.
Gabe,
Not him, but his,
is he still here?
the higher up said no.
Okay.
Our people said no, and so we end up,
Well, we
okay,
also-
how do we do this?
Well, we also thought about doing all rentals.
We tried that too.
That was our third go, or our second go. We wanted to do all rentals that are, economical, but the problem is the rental rates here in Fort Collins are, pushing 2.25. Well, according to our numbers, we'd had to charge $3.75
Per square foot.
per square foot.
Yeah,
So
Right.
didn't, as we say, pencil, it didn't work to do that, so.
Right.
But
I mean,
we
yeah.
do- We
Yeah.
do have 6 units that are reasonably affordable. But we're just
we
not
don't
sure what
know.
those numbers
We don't
are.
know yet, but.
Because
they
it's
are
based
small.
on very, very small type units.
Yeah, like reasonably affordable on like minimum wage, or reasonably affordable for like a
I
6-figure
don't know.
dual income household.
Yeah,
Well, I
For
can't
that
really
building.
answer that, but,
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely hard to like keep investors happy with like the numbers, but like it's also hard for all of the people who do live on the street and in the park that is Library Park. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. You guys were talking about trying to like keep bad actors away when people are just like kind of trying to survive. And it sort of just seems like maybe there was a couple more hoops that could have been jumped through, but yeah, like I understand you got a cute little community there and stuff like that. And it's easier to push people away than to like, lift them up and stuff like that. So, but like I said, it looks beautiful. Looking forward to seeing when it's all done. So thanks for all your hard work on that, guys.
Comment
Please.
just for a minute on that. We're in the neighborhood as well. I don't live down there, but our business is down there, so we have a different perspective than being there. But I want people to understand, because not everybody is in the world, about where cost comes from. It's not something where investors are going, okay, we got to get the highest price. That is the way this partnership came from, was not out of that. That is not the synthesis of what this came out of. This came out of that we care about this neighborhood. We all are invested in it because we're down there all the time. We're doing the business, we're living down there, and we care about what's going on down there. But there are
Yeah, I mean, I live down there too, and I work down there as well. So yeah,
Right,
I'm
that's
down
awesome.
there a lot. Yeah. So
But
I just
there are some
yeah.
things that are completely out of our control. For instance, some of you may be aware that from reading in the paper that they're talking about increasing the water tap fees to 150% of what that used to be. We have no control over that. That has to go into the costs. That just goes there. So a lot of those fees we have no control over. And although we have very sincere, plans that we were really trying to figure out, how can we do affordable housing? You know, you can only do so much. We met with a number of different organizations. We went down those paths a lot to try to figure that out. And we just couldn't get it figured out based on what they were trying to do, and they couldn't either.
No.
And so that was honestly discouraging for us, because it was
Yeah.
something that we really
Really
wanted
wanted
to
to
try
do.
to do.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to address that from that side of it, just so people can understand where that's coming from. If you haven't been through that process, and like you said, it's very accurate, 2 to 3 years that we've been talking about this and dreaming about what this could be and what this could be for our community. And is it 150% of what we thought it was going to be on the front end? No, but we got sort of led down this path, and you move this way a little bit and move that way a little bit. And we do really feel excited about where we landed on it.
I feel good about it.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions in the room? And feel free online to go ahead and put your hands up. No more questions.
Well, let's have a beer.
Here, I've got one more.
I'd like to see it really looks nice.
Oh, thank you.
If we could do
You
one of
guys all
those
know
over
where
there.
we are. Well, a lot of you know where
Well-
we are. You can come and talk to us about it.
Don't know, but.
That's why I looked
If
at
you
you.
have asked that question, the answer is generally no.
Yeah.
Right. And he's- Okay,
Okay.
I think it looks amazing. I'm very excited to see this going forward.
Thank you.
That's not my place, move into one of those.
I'm gonna very quickly go over our next steps here so that you know how to continue to get in touch with me and the applicant team as we continue to move through this process. For folks online, if you're, still trying to get your hands up or pop something in the chat, feel free to do that. I will keep an eye out for you. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we did record this meeting. So if you want to go back and you're wondering, what was the answer to that question? How many units did we say that there were? How many square feet? Yada, yada. You can go back and watch this video. It's posted on YouTube. And the link to that YouTube page is on the document in the front table. For folks in Zoom, I'll go ahead and post that document in the chat as well, so you have access. The process of review is different for every single project, and so it's hard to predict exactly how long it's going to be, what exactly it'll entail. Some projects are more complex than others, and we need more time with them. Typically we set us like 3 weeks for one round of review, but again, it can be very different depending on each project. So it's hard for me to predict exactly when things will happen again with this project that you can get involved with. Typically when we see a project like this and we hear a pretty good amount of support from the neighbors, we won't require another neighborhood meeting unless there's neighborhood push for one. So feel free to get in touch with me if you'd like to chat with our applicant staff again, or with our city staff, and we'll see what we can do about that. We have a website where we have updated all of our project updates that you can access. That link is also on this document that I'll share in the chat and is on the table. And that's kind of our hub for development review. You'll be able to go on there and search for this project using the name, the address, the streets that it's located on, or that project number. And again, if you can't find it, let me know and I'll find it for you. And then as we get through this review process, the final step for them to achieve approval from the city is going to be a public hearing. So that'll be your next time to engage in person at a public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you want to know what those are like, there's one happening right now. So you can go check it out at City Hall. But essentially we allow public comment at those hearings, and public comment will help the decision makers decide whether or not to grant approval based on whether the proposal adheres to the land use code. So we're just looking at, does it adhere to our land use code standards or does it not? And we'll grant approval based on that. So that will be coming up in an undetermined amount of time, but if you received a letter for this hearing or for this meeting tonight, you'll also receive the letter for the hearing when it's scheduled. And it's also posted at this development review website that you have the link for. Does anybody have any questions about moving forward with the project?
Bob, are you locked into solar?
Yes.
You are.
We're just about ready to start doing our modeling. And we're not quite sure if we have enough solar area, so we don't have to do wells. And that's the first thing we have to figure out. We had to do solar and geothermal wells in Lavinier. We are hoping that we have enough roof, but we don't know until we get into it. But it's gonna be basically the same metric as Lavinier. In fact, it might be a little better, because we learned a lot on that project.
Yeah.
It can be better. We just moved there.
You're a plant, aren't you? You're both, all you guys
No,
are
I just moved
plants.
here 4 months ago. It can't be any better.
That's pretty good.
Sometimes it's a balance between the wall thickness and so what our air tightness that we can achieve and our skin and insulation and all that stuff, our efficient equipment, and
And
how
it's
much
changed
solar
a
we
lot.
need.
It's
And it's changed
changed.
a lot. Our panels are 375 watts.
They're 400 or
We have a
4,000.
29 kilowatt
400.
system.
What?
Yeah, they're now 400. By the time we put these in, they're gonna be higher than that. So it takes fewer panels to do what we did. And we also got some funding from the DDA to help with that, the solar, which was
We'll
nice.
probably,
Hopefully we'll get, we want it to be energy independent as much as possible.
Quick question, will you be required to improve the alley at all? It's a little rough.
It's really rough, and I don't know if Saunders has figured it in the price, but it needs to be worked on. And I don't know if Calvin actually has that in his numbers.
I'm not exactly sure, but there are some utility tie-ins in that alley, so I think it's pretty likely that.
It'll get resurfaced.
Paving will be replaced.
There's a process, someone has to come out and inspect it from engineering, and then they tell us what we have to do to make it up to grade. So Gabe said, there's a lot of utility placements in that alley, so it's gonna get ripped up anyways. It's probably gonna get replaced.
Isn't there's a sewer in that?
Yeah.
The sewer's in that line.
Yeah.
And we're not sure if we're gonna have one sewer or 2 taps, or I guess 5 on that side, 6 on that side. We're not quite sure, but we're working through all that right now.
Yeah, we tried to get it in the DDA's alley program, which is Russell Mills is responsible for all the alleys, or the majority of the alleys, right? You did the master plan. And, everybody knows how wonderful the alleys are in Fort Collins.
So we're gonna petition
We're
to
still
maybe get
trying.
that done.
But it's,
That's great.
it dropped off of their list, and I think it dropped off because this part of the alley got narrowed. Sorry.
It's
I can't see.
cobblestone now.
Yeah, so
Just right there.
it's, this part, this doesn't look correct, because there's some transformers in here.
Yeah, they're-
Down by you
Yeah.
guys's,
Yeah.
and I think because it got narrowed, it's not eligible, but we're not gonna give up.
Yeah.
Figures, if we're doing something nice on the alley, then, why won't they say, oh, yeah, sure, let's do
Well,
something.
and with your project, it's pretty busy alley with the
Yeah.
businesses there, and then the underground parking of the front row, whatever it's called, and then yours. It's pretty busy, so it would be nice if it could be
Yeah,
absolutely.
nicer, yeah.
doubt
See,
about it.
improved.
Don't have to avoid the
substantially.
potholes and the cars.
You also have the
Mhm.
elevation.
Yeah.
They park underneath.
Yeah.
So one of the good things about the alley and alleys in general in this kind of context is that they're doing, when they're functioning right, they're actually doing a great thing. They're getting all that service stuff, and they're concentrating service access and access in general in one location, rather than, for example, we could have come in and proposed that all of our garages be fronting Oak Street or Matthews or something, right? What a disaster that would be. But by even front row on Main having its access off the alley, it reduces the number of curb cuts in the, the pedestrian side from the other side of the street. And it makes the pedestrian environment so much better when you concentrate the traffic in those kinds of places. And my guess, if I were a guessing person, is that there will be, the alley will be at least repaved.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
And there's usually Cisco trucks parked there too, by
Yeah,
the way,
all the
for
time.
the restaurants.
Right, because when I would go to, is it this building where the lettuce,
Yeah,
the salad place is? Yeah, we, right there, and they're always there.
Yeah, they're not supposed to park in the alley that's off of Matthews there, behind front row,
Yeah.
because they block our
Yeah, I
garage
do
and
see 'em
everything. So they'll park there next to the electrical outlets, the boxes, and that really reduces. That'll reduce, I don't think it impact your building though. But
No, it just makes a congested alley.
and we have trouble coming in on the alley that's off Matthews. Because I think at least half a dozen people have scraped the
Yeah.
side of their car.
Yeah, because it's a very tight turn,
a hard
and that
right turn.
door is only 10
Yeah.
feet wide, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Wow.
and
yeah,
there's
so I understand why you would
orange
want to come down this
curves.
alley instead of that
Get a
alley.
better shot at it.
so anyways.
Straight.
I really appreciate everybody's feedback tonight. This is really helpful for us. If you have anything that pops up into your mind after this, send it over to me. I'll make sure it gets to the right person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All for coming.
Thank you all for coming. It's all great to see all.
Excited about it.
Yeah, yes. You guys are gonna move in there, you said.
It'd be tempting.
Yeah, it really looks great.
Carol, I think you want the one right on the corner that's right, looking right at the church though.
Yeah.
They're right here.
You were gonna say looking right at you.
It's right here.
And yeah, she has a great shot at this.
Yeah.
When are you gonna buy that?
It's gonna be better.
Yes,
See more eyes on the street there.
yes.
Yeah. I didn't tell you this. One of our.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I
Yeah, this will be next.
Really?
Yeah, so, wouldn't that be wonderful? Oh, my God. That would be so awesome. So maybe that's where we can do our affordable housing. Yeah. That would be nice.
Yeah.
But it's been a big improvement in just not having. I know. It's been a big improvement. I wonder what's next. I know they were having to, issues that they were cited for, they were cited for whatever 5 years. They were having to mitigate those concerns. And I don't know when they decide they did it, like if they say, oh, you did it, is it gonna go back to what it was? Well,
A lot of us had a concern that they allowed them to get their license to house people during the winter when the outside didn't pass.
but, right, they're like two different departments. Like,
Which doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't make sense. to me.
So, and there have been a few incidences that have still happened. So I don't know. We'll just